Welcome to the Heartland Institute's Climate Reality Forum, Day 2. We're here in Glasgow, Scotland, where the United Nations is hosting their 26th Conference of the Parties, because I guess the first 25 didn't solve global warming. Maybe number 26 will do so. We're here to provide the actual truth about global warming science, economics, policy, and related issues. So we have a great program lined up for you today, but before we get to that, just a couple notes here about Day 1 and the events that occurred at the UN facility yesterday. It's very interesting here. I'm looking at, I'm going to pull up on my cell phone. Here's from the Daily Mail here in the UK. Here's the headline of a story from this morning. Cop out. Biden leads the exodus of world leaders from Glasgow as they jet home after just 48 hours, leaving negotiation teams behind to thrash out the detail on how to save the world. My goodness, we had 30,000 people here in Glasgow, Scotland, including heads of state from all over the world. This is the biggest carbon dioxide super spreader event of the year. And yet, what's it all for? World leaders came in, they posed for pictures, they were able to say they were here at the Conference of the Parties, and yet they stayed for 48 hours and left. Nothing more than a photo op. Shame on you. If you truly believe in a climate crisis, what are you doing flying out here, spreading all your carbon dioxide emissions on your airplanes, your private jets, getting together, and then immediately turning around and flying home? Shame on you. What it really shows is that Joe Biden and the other world leaders who are here promoting the notion of a climate crisis don't believe half the garbage that they're selling. If they truly believed that global warming is the greatest threat facing humanity, you think they'd get together and talk about it. Heck, you think they'd do this via Zoom rather than spreading carbon dioxide emissions by flying here from all over the world. As I mentioned yesterday, we certainly had a lot of political posturing from these world leaders. Boris Johnson stated that we are 1 minute to midnight on the world destruction clock. We are facing global destruction of human civilization greater than at any point in our history. Even the Cuban Missile Crisis didn't surpass our current climate emergency. That's what they say. And yet leaders fly in, 30,000 people fly in from around the world. World leaders fly out after 2 days. Absolutely unbelievable. Also, we at the Heartland Institute, we are staying in Edinburgh because once the UN announced its climate conference in Glasgow, they had already booked most all the hotel rooms in Glasgow. So the closest we can get was Edinburgh. And when I landed at the Edinburgh airport, I noticed Air Force One sitting on the runway. My taxi driver pointed out, said, yes, your president just arrived. And there were actually two planes, one Air Force One, the other whatever they call it that's like it. Why didn't Joe Biden fly into Glasgow? Edinburgh to Glasgow is farther away than Baltimore to Washington, D.C. Well, the reason, I imagine, from what I'm told by people who know Scotland well, is that Edinburgh is a much nicer place to stay than Glasgow. Seems to be the case for me. Joe Biden has a nice place in Edinburgh because, well, it's nicer to stay. And his whole caravan of however many vehicles driving back and forth to Glasgow, who cares about the carbon dioxide emissions of that? It's nicer to stay in Edinburgh, regardless of the climate crisis. By the way, another note about Joe Biden and his plans. As was mentioned yesterday, Christopher Monckton mentioned the $500 billion, I think it was Monckton, might have been Mark Morano, mentioned the $500 billion climate provisions in the budget reconciliation bill, $555 billion to address climate change. Now let's break that down by the number of American households. $555 billion equates to nearly $5,000 per American household. Do you really want to pay $5,000 extra to the government? By the way, and that's just for this particular package. Of course, climate change programs are part of the infrastructure bill and other Biden programs. But let's just say the budget reconciliation package. Do you really want to pony up $5,000 for this nonsense? I don't think most Americans do. I think we saw a little bit of that in the elections yesterday, where the Democrats who are pushing a radical climate agenda, by all means there are many other issues that are important too, but nevertheless, did not fare very well. Climate alarmism doesn't sell because climate alarmism simply is not real. It is a delusion designed to give more money and power to government. So here we are, day 2 of the Heartland Climate Reality Forum, and we will be presenting the facts that back up what I just said. And it's not just me. We have folks from organizations from around the world, organizations that bring the truth to the climate reality and climate change debate. Now, one of the focuses of our efforts is with young people. And we are very proud to present our first speaker is a young adult from Germany. And as I mentioned yesterday, I met Naomi Seipt 2 years ago at a climate conference by our friends at the European Institute for Climate and Energy in Germany. And while I was attending and watching the presentations, I noticed this young lady who was just paying such close attention to the speakers, taking notes, afterwards asking very insightful questions, very knowledgeable on the climate change debate and many other topics. And I asked about her, and I was told that she was an influencer in Germany, a social media influencer. She was very popular on social media, and as well-spoken and as well-composed as she was, we at the Heartland Institute, we wanted to give her a broader audience. Now, she already had a very large audience in Germany and outside of Germany, but we brought her to the United States of America. We brought her to present at the annual CPAC meeting in 2020, and she was a sensation, making very impressive and compelling media appearances for American media outlets and global media outlets. We continue to stay in touch with Naomi Seipt. Naomi Seipt is somebody that, for as much as the media pumps up Greta Thunberg as the voice of the young generation, here is a true voice for common sense, for wise public policy, for a young generation and for all generations. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce Naomi Seipt, appearing via video.